Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Soccer Morning, worldsoccertalk.com. Man, I am ready. I'm ready for a weekend. I'm ready for, the soccer that's coming this weekend, but just the weekend. We've had quite the week around here. We've got some terrible news this morning, and it's going to lead the news. But let's start just by setting this program up today. Jonathan Johnson, our friend who covers French football, will join us momentarily, or in the next couple of minutes, rather. And I'm sure you can guess what we might be talking about with Michel Johnson. I mean, it is fascinating times around the French national team program, and mostly due to the scandal investigation of Karim Benzema and his role in a blackmail scheme with Mathieu Valbuena. We will also talk about the league, because that is bonkers as well. Paris Saint-Germain seems to be a pretty good team, or at least a lot better than anybody else in France. We will get to that when we grab Mr. Johnson in just a little bit. Let's start again. Let's start with the news, and it is sad news out of Honduras. Honduran midfielder Arnold Peralta murdered in a shooting in his hometown. He was 26 years old. He was playing for Olympia in Honduras. He had previously been with Rangers in Scotland. He was killed in La Ceiba on the country's coast. Of course, Honduras has rampant problems with gang violence, the murder rate among the highest in the world. He was killed outside of a mall. He was on vacation at the conclusion, obviously, of the club season there in Honduras. Just no words here. No words when a young man in his prime is cut down in a needless act of violence. And let's hope that the perpetrators are caught. Honduras, again, going through a lot of things societal in a societal sense, and this is just a further expression of the problems that Honduras is having. We wish, obviously, Peralta's family the best in this difficult time. In the Europa League, Tottenham and Liverpool among clubs advancing to the round of 32. Liverpool tops their group after a 0-0 draw with FC Sion. Tottenham smashes Monaco 4-1. Eric Lamela with a first-half hat trick for Spurs. Dortmund falling to PAOK. How do you say that again? Is that the same club, or do I have my clubs mixed up? Whatever, they lost on the road 1-0 in the Europa League. But we do have the 32 teams set for the Europa League draw for the next round. Liverpool, Spurs, Napoli, Manchester United, Bayer Leverkusen, Schalke among the seeded teams. Of course, we have those third-place teams from the Champions League groups dropping down into the Europa League, where I'm sure some of them will be making some noise if they take it even a little bit seriously. Liga MX final last night. First leg at Tigres, Estadio Universitario in Monterrey. A 3-0 win for Tigres. I mean, just a crushing defeat for Pumas in that first leg. Puts them behind the 8 ball as they try to go back home and turn that around. Andre Pierre Gignac with a penalty. Javier Aquino with a very nice goal. Rafael Sobis scores the final one for Tigres as they take, again, a 3-0 lead. Seems pretty impossible for Pumas at this point, but we shall see if there's anything to be had there. Tigres out front on the front foot, attacking. Pumas attempting to sit back and absorb pressure, and it just ultimately did not work. The penalty was soft, but they did not deserve to get anything from that game. Michel Platini has lost his appeal against his 90-day provisional suspension at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Now, Platini was appealing this ban mostly so he could get his name on the ballot for the presidential race in FIFA come next next February. The ban, according to the CAS, does not cause irreparable harm to Platini at this point in time. While he is banned, Platini cannot campaign for FIFA president, and he certainly cannot be vetted as a candidate to be put on the ballot. The case centering around Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini that resulted in the 90-day provisional ban will be heard today by FIFA's Ethics Committee, with a decision expected in 3 days' time. Now, since we had the ban in place, and of course this is all over the roughly $2 million payment that was made to Michel Platini for work done in 1999, but the payment wasn't made until 10 years later, and lots of questions over that payment. It was not made officially on the books. The handshake agreement for work done previously, it came at an odd time, just before a FIFA presidential election, in which, of course, Sepp Blatter was reelected. So lots of questions over this payment, this agreement. But since then, we've also heard that the FBI is directly investigating Sepp Blatter for his role in a bribery scheme of up to $100 million, which involved ISL, the former defunct marketing company of FIFA. So that continues to hang over Sepp Blatter's head while Michel Platini tries to clear his name so he can be elected FIFA president, which we all know is not going to change anything in the halls of FIFA in Zurich. The France Football Federation, the president of the France Football Federation, Noël Le Graët, has said on Thursday that striker Karim Benzema will not be included in the national team until his blackmail case is concluded. Benzema, for his part, tweeted his support of Le Graët and said he respected the decision. The Real Madrid forward hopes to denies wrongdoing, of course, in the case involving Mathieu Valbuena and that sex tape on a cell phone and some shady characters that, of course, we have heard that Karim Benzema was childhood friends with, and he was the one that approached Mathieu Valbuena about this scheme. Benzema's lawyer is confident that Benzema will play in the 2016 European Championships come next summer in France. Of course, that tournament's set for Benzema's home country of France. To get all of that and all the details and the background and what this means, we will talk to Jonathan Johnson in just a couple of moments. He covers French football just about as well as anybody on the planet. It should be a good discussion with him. It's a big Friday show. After Jonathan, there'll be phone calls all about you. So get ready. Soccer Morning on a Friday. WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
We are back on Soccer Morning. Happy to be joined on the telephone now by our friend Jonathan Johnson, who covers French football. Jonathan, hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing well. It continues to be fascinating times in France, in French football, and the lead story right now, of course, remains Karim Benzema. His connection to this blackmail scheme revolving around Mathieu Valbuena, and the latest is that he has been suspended from the national team. I suppose this is no surprise, but what does it mean?
No, it's not a surprise at all. And basically what this means is that Benzema is now unavailable to France coach Didier Deschamps indefinitely. So basically until this issue gets cleared up and until there's some sort of clear answer as to whether Benzema is guilty, not guilty, and exactly what part he played has been established, he won't be featuring for France. Now, on the face of this could be something that just keeps him out of international contention for a couple of months. But, having lived here in France for a number of years now and knowing how, things work in France, it takes a bit longer than that, to take care of these sorts of things. And it would not surprise me to see this go all the way to the wire and, for there to be, sort of some nervy moments towards the Euros with, France waiting to know whether or not they'll be able to include Benzema in their Euro plans. And, at the moment, I think it's, I'd say it's probably 50-50 at best. I think there is a very good chance that Karim Benzema won't be playing at the Euros because this just might not be cleared up in time.
For his part, he did tweet that he respected the decision. Is that just putting a public face on it, or do you believe that Benzema, is taking this, is handling this situation as well as he can, considering the circumstances? And again, I'm putting aside any question of his guilt?
I mean, I think he is, he's handling it professionally in as much as he's, respected the decision so far. He has spoken out in French public on French television, about the revelations from Mathieu Valbuena's interview with Le Monde a couple of weeks ago. So I'd say that probably wasn't the best thing to do, although I'm not sure that it was the best thing for Valbuena to speak with Le Monde as well. Right. Although it did fill in some of the blanks, that the French public were missing in trying to keep up with this story. But I think that at the moment Benzema just seems to be concentrated on getting back to full fitness, playing again with Real Madrid, scoring goals as he's been doing recently, especially in the Champions League and La Liga in the last couple of games. And I think now he's just going to wait for this to all be taken care of. I mean, it sounds from what he's said, that he's not guilty of the actual crime of the blackmail. But it does sound, once again, and not for the first time in his career, like he is guilty of making some very, very poor decisions, and being advised on matters in life by people who are, of extremely questionable influence.
Yeah. So certainly those connections are they seem to be a major part of why he finds himself in this position. Again, whatever he did, and that's an ongoing investigation. You talked about Mathieu Valbuena talking to Le Monde, and maybe there's some gaps that I still don't have filled, and I don't expect you to go through the whole case, Jonathan. But it is from what I've seen in the last couple of months, it looks like Valbuena has done a 180-degree turn on Karim Benzema. At first, it seemed as though he was saying there wasn't anything there, and he was his, of course, Benzema was his friend and his teammate, his colleague, and then there was a turn. Is that where things stand now? What's the public relationship between Valbuena and Benzema?
Well, I think at the end of the day, there isn't a lot of animosity. I don't think Valbuena was trying to come out and say, Benzema and I aren't friends anymore. We're made out to be extremely close in the press, but it's not really that way. I think what they're trying to say is that they do have a relationship and a good relationship, despite the testing nature of what's happening at the moment. But they're not as close as they were made out in the press, and that basically Benzema was trying to help Valbuena clear up the issue, but there are a number of people connected to this case, and a number of different relationships that kind of muddy the water. But essentially, at the end of the day, I think what Valbuena and Benzema are both trying to say is that they could still be international teammates at some point in the future. It's just that when this first came out, their relationship was perhaps played up a little bit, and it was made to look like they were the best of friends, when that was perhaps not ever the case.
And certainly that makes for a better story if they were very close, and then this comes between them, and Benzema takes advantage of the relationship. I understand all that, and again, I don't want to speculate about the real details. We certainly don't know, and that's why there's an investigation and why Benzema finds himself in this situation. From Didier Deschamps' position, without Benzema being available, this isn't an issue of qualification. It's just an issue of trying to use whatever matches they have between now and the start of the Euros to get ready to try to go win a title. What practical issue does this present for the French national team?
Well, I mean, obviously Benzema is a key player in that team. He's the star striker, or at least he is in Deschamps' side. So for Deschamps now, he's got to go with other options, look at how he could potentially line up going into the Euros if he was deprived of Benzema. So he's going to be looking at people like Olivier Giroud, Anthony Martial's hit the ground running at Manchester United. He's now started to establish himself in this France team. Valbuena will be available for selection once again after missing the Germany and England friendlies. Deschamps has got a couple of decisions to make on who he keeps in that squad. He's got other options available to him as well if he chooses to use them. Alexandre Lacazette's been out of favour recently because he's been out of form with Lyon, but he could get himself back into the reckoning with some good form at the beginning of next year ahead of the friendlies in March. And then there's the likes of Hatem Ben Arfa as well, who's been doing well for Nice so far this season, gone off the ball a little bit recently, but he's still done well enough to get himself back into the French national team for those friendlies against Germany and England. So, there's still plenty of options for Deschamps to go through and call up for those friendlies if he's not able to call on Benzema. But I think he is still planning on Benzema being there for the Euros, and I think he's hoping to have him available for some of the friendlies in the build-up to the tournament as well, and not just discovering very last minute that he can either include Benzema in his squad or have to leave him out completely.
I think I asked you about the possibility of a player like Andre Pierre Gignac being in the team next summer. I mean, he's obviously doing very well in Mexico. It's, I imagine, a little off the radar there in France, but and he's playing right now in a final with Tigres in Mexico. What's Gignac's possibilities?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the moment, Gignac is doing very, very well. Like you said, he keeps scoring goals. Not even, they're not even all tap-ins. Some of them are quite spectacular. We saw that bicycle kick a couple of weeks ago, had the fantastic shot from the edge of the area as well. So, Gignac is just scoring goals in copious amounts. And as long as he keeps doing that, then I definitely think that keeps him in contention. I think Deschamps also has to consider the way he played against Germany. Now, I know for obvious reasons, not many people will remember too much about what went on in the game, but Gignac did score a very, very good goal in that match. Fantastic header from a Blaise Matuidi cross. So proved a point there a little bit in that he does have something to offer this France side, and I definitely think that while Karim Benzema is out, then Gignac as well as Giroud, are two players who really need to be given a chance to prove themselves because they could be extremely useful for the Euros. And if Benzema is unable to go, then it's going to have to be one of those two, I think, that leads the line ultimately for France.
Now let's turn to Ligue 1. Let's turn to the league. Jonathan, it's the first time, I'll admit, it's the first time I've checked the standings, checked the table in France in quite some time, or at least a couple of weeks. In the Champions League has been at the forefront this week with PSG and everything else, but I did not realize the gap. I certainly did not realize how dominant PSG was. I knew they were the best team in the league by a good stretch, but to see 15 points after 17 matches, to see that their goal difference is 30 plus 32, that seems insane to me.
Yeah, it's a big lead, but you've got to bear in mind as well that this time last year PSG was struggling. They didn't go into Christmas top of the league. In fact, they were third. At the turn of the year. So PSG are much improved this season compared to last, and by much improved, I don't mean that the football that they're playing is of the highest quality that we can see from them. Obviously there's a big discrepancy between what we see domestically for the majority of the time and what we see in the Champions League. But, PSG are far less complacent this season than they were last season, and it seems to be part of their plan that they build up this huge lead in Ligue 1 so that they can get themselves as comfortable as possible ahead of the second half of the season, and then knowing that they're going to probably face a tough draw in the Champions League because they finished second in their group, so they're going to come up against one of the group winners. I think that they're hoping that they'll be in a position where they can just fully concentrate on their Champions League games in the build-up to those matches, and not have to worry too much about what's going on domestically. Whereas last season, it took them a long time up until about April, to finally hit top spot. Whereas they've been very, very dominant in Ligue 1 almost from the get-go. And I think that now they what they want to do is ideally go into the winter break with an advantage of sort of around 20 points, somewhere in that bracket, so that they can concentrate on the Champions League certainly at the beginning of next year, and perhaps even start thinking about bringing in some of the youth academy players as well, certainly for the domestic cups, even if not the league.
The draw for the round of 16 coming on Monday. What's the best case scenario? I mean, I think people would obviously pick out a Chelsea team that has struggled in the league, but still won their group. Maybe Zenit as the weakest of the group winners, but it's not as though it's an easy path, no matter who they get.
No, it's not. I think they're going to face some very tough teams. I think that many people would like to see them avoid the likes of Barcelona and Chelsea now, because we have seen them drawn, quite a few times in the past. So I think that, there are many people who will be hoping for something like Zenit. But, you've got to bear in mind, Zenit's not an easy draw. They had a fantastic group stage campaign. Had they not lost their last match, they may well have been one of the only teams in Champions League history. I think they would have been maybe the 8th team in Champions League history to go through a group stage and win every game. So I think that they perhaps wouldn't view Zenit as the easiest team to go up against. And also, you've got to bear in mind, what the weather's going to be like traveling to Zenit at the beginning of next year. It'll be extremely cold, and I think that looking at it, the teams that perhaps PSG might fancy coming up against would be somebody like a Manchester City. I know when you look at the team on paper, Manchester City look like a very daunting proposition. However, given their Champions League record, and given PSG's, and I think given PSG's defensive record as well, it's the best in the Champions League so far this season. Just one goal conceded across all of the group games. So, I think PSG will be very confident going up against whoever they're drawn against. But I think many people would like to see them avoid certainly Chelsea, because we've seen that now in the last 2 editions, and perhaps Barcelona as well, because it's something that we have seen crop up many times in the last few seasons. So drawing a Manchester City, maybe even an Atletico Madrid, that would be a refreshing change, I think. Yeah.
I mean, just from a selfish perspective, I as you said, maybe not Barcelona, but certainly somebody like Bayern Munich, that might be fun. So we have one French club into the round of 16. The other one, Lyon, finished bottom of the group in Group H. They didn't even make it into the Europa League spot. Jonathan, what is the feeling at Lyon about their Champions League campaign? Certainly about their inability to even finish third in that group.
Yeah, huge disappointment. I think you can say that about Lyon's season in general, not just the Champions League campaign. I think Lyon have the players to have done much better in the Champions League, have the players to have done much better as well domestically, but it's been a struggle for them so far. They've had a number of different problems. Hubert Fournier was under pressure going into the Valencia game, came away with a victory there, so that takes the pressure off ahead of the trip to PSG on Sunday a little bit. But Lyon, all is not well still behind the scenes at Stade Gerland. The owner, Jean-Michel Aulas, extremely disillusioned with the way that his team's been playing, some of the problems between the players so far this season. And I think that, it's hugely disappointing that they weren't even able to finish third. But then I don't think many people would have predicted that Ghent would perform so well. Many people wrote them off before the group stage draw, but they did fantastically well. And I think, credit has to be paid to Hein van Heertebroek and his team, because they did fantastically well in that group. Zenit as well. They've sort of perennially disappointed on the Champions League stage. Took their group duties extremely seriously. Performed very well, very efficient, and made it through as well. And Valencia were very disappointing as well, but just slightly less so than Lyon were. So yeah, it's disappointing to not see Lyon drop into the Europa League, especially when you consider the amount of teams that have dropped out of that competition already. I'm thinking of the likes of Monaco, who went out with a whimper against Tottenham. So for France to only have 3 representatives left in Europe this season, in PSG, Saint-Etienne and Marseille, the latter 2 in the Europa League, all of them going through in second place. I think that all of the French teams are going to be facing some very difficult draws next week when they're made.
Yeah, looking at the Europa League group standings at the moment, as you mentioned, Marseille and Saint-Etienne into the knockout phase in second place. Marseille finishing behind Braga by a point, and Saint-Etienne finishing behind Lazio. And then Bordeaux out of the tournament, finishing last in Group B in the Europa League. And, at the very least, especially this season, there's some sizable teams. Manchester United has now dropped into the Europa League. So there's at least an opportunity there. And we've seen we've seen teams, we've seen clubs take that competition seriously. It wasn't that long ago that Chelsea took that competition seriously and made hay from it. Is there a real effort on the part of the French clubs with Marseille and Saint Etienne now to push and try to win this tournament, or does the difficulty within the league preclude them from giving it their full go?
I mean, I think with Marseille, their struggles in the league at the moment, I think that they will concentrate more on the domestic front than they will do in Europe, although I think they will still want to try and go as far as possible. Saint Etienne seem to be a little more concentrated on Europe this season than they are on the domestic front. Their performance in this year's Europa League group stage is much improved from last season. So to see them, one of the French teams with real history in Europe going through to the latter stages is very good, very pleasing. So it would be fantastic if they were able to make a run out of it, especially for a lot of the French footballing romantics. But I have to be honest, I don't think that either team really has the squad depth to sustain a really deep run in the Europa League. I think that Marseille, perhaps have a bit better squad depth than Saint Etienne, but they're still getting to grips with Michel as new coach, and they're trying to work their way up in Ligue 1 as well. So I guess it all depends on what their domestic form has been like over the winter break when the Europa League starts back up. But with Saint Etienne, I think it's fantastic that they got themselves out of the group stage, but I'm not sure that I can see them going that much further because once again, they're just undone by their lack of squad depth. Really, they were dealt a severely harsh blow a couple of weeks ago in the derby against Lyon when Robert Beric, the striker, got injured. He's now been ruled out for the season. So losing a player like that, somebody as prolific as he is in such an important position, especially one that Saint Etienne have really struggled to fill in the last couple of years up until they managed to sign him, that is a big blow for their chances, but I'm sure they'll give it everything to try and get through at least a couple more rounds, and hopefully come up against one of the real big guns of the tournament, and see how they can handle that over two legs. But I think the longer Saint Etienne are in Europe, I think the more they'll struggle in the league. We've seen them losing more games so far this season than I think they did even over the entirety of last campaign, although very close to having lost more already this season than they did last. So, they've improved on the continental front, but they've regressed a bit on the domestic front.
I'm looking at so we're a couple of weeks from the first half of the season concluding, and at this point, or with those 2 weeks left to play, before we take a quick break and then start the second half, what are the stories for you beyond PSG and their lead at the moment, as you would expect? Where are the storylines that are most intriguing for you, Jonathan?
I think you just got to look at the chasing pack for behind PSG at the moment. You've got the likes of Angers, Caen. Extremely impressive so far. I think up until their recent loss of form, Nice as well have been very exciting to watch. And I think all the way down there as well, Gazalec, Ajaccio have been on a fantastic recent run. Nobody expected anything of them. They started the season, they spent it dwelling on the bottom of the league. Going to form, as far as many people's pre-season predictions, and then all of a sudden started picking up wins, stringing them together. Put some very, very good form together, and now they find themselves out of the relegation zone and looking to keep themselves out of the bottom three for as long as they can, and perhaps complete a remarkable survival story. I think Gazalec deserve plenty of credit for the way that they're playing at the moment. Thierry Lauré has done a fantastic job there, and hopefully he keeps doing that. Angers as well. Okay, it might not be the most beautiful football to watch at times, but they're getting some fantastic results. First team in maybe 26 Ligue 1 matches to not allow PSG to score against them in a league game a couple of weeks ago when they drew 0-0. Fantastic effort from them, and then they were the visitors in Lyon's last Ligue 1 game at Stade Gerland and came away with a 2-0 win. So really spoiled the party there. They've been fantastic so far this season. No real standout stars, apart from some very good, solid defenders, very good midfielder as well in Sheikh and Doy, but no sort of prolific striker there to be scoring all the goals to keep them up. It's very much a team achievement from them, and I think Stéphane Moulin deserves plenty of credit for what he's done with Angers so far, and Caen as well. Very, very exciting team to watch under Patrice Garand. And I don't think it's unrealistic at the moment, considering the nature of Ligue 1 and how a couple of wins can get you into a good position as far as European qualification goes, and a couple of defeats can also send you down, looking towards the relegation battle. I don't think it's unrealistic at the moment to say that teams like Caen and Angers could be involved in the shake-up towards the end of the season, for the Champions League places.
Well, that would certainly be stunning. Again, PSG far and away the best team in the league, via the collection of talent that they've spent a lot of money to put together. The rest of the league, and then I guess this gets me to the big picture questions. This is just how my brain works, Jonathan, to wonder about the future, to wonder about the makeup of this league, provided PSG maintains their position as the most dominant team and really starts to make it a one team, or barring a run from a couple of other sides year to year, making it a one team league. What does that ultimately mean for French football in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's something that's, is a concern, but it depends season on season. This season, as I said earlier on, we've seen a very focused PSG side, a PSG side that's not as complacent as it was last campaign, that they're very focused on wanting to pick up as many points as quickly as possible, knowing that it will help them, really make an impact on the stage that they, desire to impress on, which is the Champions League. But, next season, especially after the Euros, a number of players are going to be fatigued after a very long summer. It is possible that PSG start the season slowly again, like they did after the 2014 World Cup. And when that happens, that opens the door to some of these other sides to impress. And, after the Euros, it's obvious that Lyon are going to sell some of their homegrown talent, but depending on the players that Lyon can keep, depending on whether Fournier stays in his job or whether Lyon appoints a new coach, I think that there is a chance that we will see them rise again and once again challenge at the top. So I think although PSG are on paper, by far and away the strongest team in Ligue 1, I think it all depends on their mindset. This season they're obviously very focused on winning as many games as possible, as quickly as possible, and putting the title out of reach of the other teams. But I think that's something that could change season upon season, especially if there's a lot of fatigue picked up by their international stars. But at the end of the day, Ligue 1 is not going to change too much. Yes, okay, maybe it's a one-horse race. At the very beginning of the season, at least as far as many people are concerned, when they look ahead to the league season. But Ligue 1 will not change in the fact that it still produces a lot of fantastic young talent, and that there will always be these success stories with the likes of Angers, of Caen, and of Gazalec Ajaccio. So, I don't think there's any danger of those sorts of teams, not impressing, not being able to make, something of an impression on European football. It's just a question really of whether PSG continue to want to avoid being complacent as much as they have so far this season, which is not a guarantee.
Right. So it brings me to the self-serving portion of our chat, Jonathan, as always. And now with Bob Bradley in France, have to check on him and whether or not you've had a look on Le Havre in the recent weeks. I know he didn't start well. This is obviously going to be an adjustment period for him and for his club. How are things going at Le Havre?
Yeah, well, it did, like you said, it took him a couple of weeks to really settle down, find his feet. I think it was the fourth game of trying that they finally managed to win, and I think that it's very interesting to see how Bradley's gone about his work so far. I think he is discovering a lot about Ligue 2 in the way that other coaches that have gone before him have done. People like Claudio Ranieri. I'm thinking, every coach or every foreign coach who's gone into Ligue 2 has commented how much how difficult it is compared to their expectations. I think that this is exactly what Bob Bradley's been finding out, and I think finally with that victory over Evian, a 3-2 win, I think he'll fight against one of the stronger teams in the league as well. It must be said. Evian had just come down from Ligue 1, coached by Safet Susic. So I think it will have been a real eye-opening experience for Bradley so far. But you look at the results. Okay, the cup loss, very disappointing. But like I said to you when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I think in the long run that will benefit Lav and Bradley. The draw against Brest, not too bad. Losing to Nancy as well, quite understandable. These are some of the best teams in the league that Lav have come up against so far, and to beat Evian is it's something positive now for Bradley to work on with the team. But although they were quite close to the top of the table when he came in, I think it was still going to be a bit of a challenge for him to get them into Ligue 1 at the first time of asking. So I think he'll know exactly what he needs to do ahead of the second half of the season in order to try and keep them in contention for going up to this championnat at the end of this season. It's difficult to make a prediction now as to whether he'll be successful in doing that. I definitely think that he's got a very good, solid squad there, but I do think he'll need one full season in order to be able to achieve that. But we'll just have to see how things go over the second half of the campaign. I think that he'll be confident that they can get a result away at Nîmes before the winter break, and then they've got Auxerre at home as well as their final game of 2015. So I think if he can pick up maximum points from both of those games, then they'll start 2016 with a real positive outlook.
Jonathan Johnson covering French football all over the place. Follow him on Twitter. It's John, JON _Le Gossip. John, thank you very much for the time as always. Brilliant insight. And if we don't talk to you, have a good holiday and a new year, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks very much, Jason. You too. Take care.
Goes, Jonathan Johnson. Good stuff from him as always. Always enjoy that chat with Jonathan. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we will open up the phone lines, and we will talk to you on a Friday. There's a lot to talk about. I haven't even mentioned that the U.S. women won last night. DC United has a new logo. It's all on the table. Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
We're back on Soccer Morning. It is Friday. I got an itch. I'm going to get rid of that itch. I'm being told on Twitter that there are new renderings of the Cosmos Stadium for Belmont. I didn't know that they were still... I knew they were still chasing that. I don't think it's a dead thing. But they're releasing new renderings for what purpose exactly? Like, I think it's a great... Here's the thing. I really, really want the Cosmos to get that stadium built. I think it would be awesome. That would be amazing. Now, I don't have a stake in Belmont or Elmont or Long Island or whatever. I don't have any stake in what happens there. So it's easy for me to say, go build the stadium. But I think it would be awesome. And I think it would be the pressure applied by the Cosmos on MLS or on American soccer in general, because the second division team now has a 25,000 seat venue. That would be good. That would be good. Let's see what the Cosmos can do. I mean, I for all the questioning I have of the way NASL has positioned themselves in American soccer, I certainly see the Cosmos pushing the envelope as a good thing. And I'm looking at the current renderings. If there are new renderings, where are they at? Where are they at? Oh yeah, and that Batman kid with 2Ds is reminding me of something that happened last night at that Tigres Pumas game. This is among the more random things. And you know what? I already knew that he was a fan. I had just sort of forgotten and pushed it out of my brain. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know the backstory. I'm sure it's an interesting one. I don't know. Maybe he's got Mexican descent in his family. Rob Schneider is the number one celebrity fan of Tigres UANL. However you say that in Spanish, those letters in Spanish. Rob Schneider. Yes, that Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider from Saturday Night Live. Rob Schneider, the guy who said making some copies. Rob Schneider, a man whose film career is among the, I don't say the worst. He's made some cash. But I mean, for pure quality, he is not up there among the greats. Okay. I mean, he's known for Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. He's known for The Animal. He's known for being the guy in the Adam Sandler movies who pops up and says something ridiculous. He's known for being the guy from The Water Boy who says, "You can do it. You can do it." Remember? That's Rob Schneider saying, "You can do it" in The Water Boy. That's like his I mean, think about that. Your career is built around a cameo in a movie where you say, "You can do it" in like a Creole sort of accent a couple of times.
You can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. You can do it.
That's Rob Schneider. And he's like Tigres. He's like their celebrity fan. And he was in a box. They gave him the microphone at halftime. They gave Rob Schneider the microphone at halftime. And you know what he said? This is a report from my friend Eric Gomez, who tweeted the picture. And it says that Rob Schneider got on the microphone and said, "Tú puedes hacerlo," meaning you can do it in Spanish. Tú puedes hacerlo. I mean, that, like, this is the rallying cry. Apparently, he gave a pregame speech. Rob Schneider. I mean, Rob Schneider is the guy giving the pregame. I mean, it worked. They won 3-0. They won 3-0. Tú puedes hacerlo. Oh, man, I love that. I mean, how come MLS can't get some former SNL cast member who made terrible movies as their celebrity fan? The bellhop in Home Alone 2, Rich Ransom on Twitter. Yes, he was that guy. He was the guy asking for the tip, and Kevin McAllister gave him his gum. Very good. Very good. Eric Hunt's on Twitter, Oliver Kahn 987. And I mentioned this, the DC United, by the way, phone lines are open, 646-832-3909. You guys know how this works. If you don't call, if we don't have stuff to talk about on the phone lines, we will shut it down. Because it's Friday, and really, we all have better things to do. Well, not really. I don't, but and soccer's fun, so you should be talking to me about it anyway. Call me. Oliver Kahn 987 on Twitter. Eric Hunt talking about the DC United logo rebranding situation. Now, I have no problem with it. I had no problem with it myself initially. I mean, I still don't really. But he's pointing out, now I don't know that this is true. Trevor, can we get verification on what Eric's saying here? DC logo is cool, but why switch to a right-facing eagle? And Trevor pointed this out last night, that the eagle's head switched from the old logo to the new logo. It's looking a different direction. Why switch to a right-facing eagle? Very associated with Nazi Germany. It's why America's face left. I hope that's not true. I mean, we've already had a situation where DC United had a very Reichish logo and had to change back in the day. Let's not do that again. I mean, I don't know that most people know what Eric knows. If this is true, this is something that I feel like I should know and I don't. So if this is a thing with the eagle, I don't know it. By the way, so apparently Rob Schneider is not necessarily specific to one Mexican soccer team, that he was also at one point a Cruz Azul fan. Okay, Schneider's a fan of Tigres because of his wife. She's a huge Tigres fan. So maybe, and here's a picture, a guy called NV406 on Twitter just tweeted me a picture of Rob Schneider in a Cruz Azul shirt. So maybe he just collects shirts. I mean, maybe he just collects Mexican football. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and you want to rock it on television, fine. I have no problem with that. All right. 646-832-3909. Jimmy Crack 91. Don't forget the movie The Hot Chick. I don't think I've ever sat through an entire Rob Schneider vehicle, meaning a movie in which he was the star. I don't think I've ever sat through one of those. Those would be the Deuce Bigalow movies, The Animal, The Hot Chick. What else? What else was he the star of? Not just a part, not the guy who says, "You can do it," but like an actual star. The actual lead guy. That might be the list. My friend Ray up in Milwaukee. What's up, Ray?
What's up? I don't know, but I what you call it about the SNL guys, but I think that would be awesome if they did I know Will Ferrell's always done some stuff for U.S. soccer.
Yeah. I think Will Ferrell's been spotted at some Galaxy games. I think that's a thing that's happened. So I mean, it's not as though there aren't some connections there. I'm just, we don't have ex Galaxy or ex SNL guys and these comedians giving pregame speeches and getting up at halftime from their luxury box and on the microphone and pushing the team for. I mean, I'm just kidding, Ray. What's on your mind?
Right. Well, I just like to say that game was highly entertaining. I mean, the 3-0 scoreline, and that to some people say that when you talk about playoffs and they say that that these teams don't. That the better team most of the time wins a table system. I would say not always necessarily, because if you look at, I think Tigres has been the most. I think Tigres is the best team in Liga MX right now, and Pumas was the one that won the league title. But when they played each other last night, you saw who the better team was. I'm not an advocate for a single table myself. I believe that when it comes to the American sports culture, that playoffs definitely perform well on television. And it's always unique when people go out here and tell me that the American soccer audience does not like playoff systems, and yet the highest rated soccer games generally tend to be Liga MX playoff games.
Yeah, I think it's that's easy to overlook, right? And obviously people want to use the MLS television ratings as a cudgel against the league, and it's doing everything wrong, and that includes playoffs sometimes, right? But you're right. It's just more important, right? I mean, for a Mexican American community, it's just more important. The soccer is more important, and then the soccer that they tend to watch is the soccer of their, of Mexico. And so I see exactly what you're saying. And it's not necessarily the playoffs that's the problem. It's making the playoffs matter to a soccer fan who watches MLS or who could watch MLS.
Right. And then I know a couple of days ago you were talking about Gignac and Sebastian Zinchenko, and one player was 90 minutes away from winning a league title, and the other player got bounced out in the first round of the playoffs. And I honestly say we could talk about European players coming to North America as a whole and bringing soccer, raising soccer to a higher standard. But I also believe that one of the reasons why the French guy Gignac came to Mexico was because the level of player going over to Europe. I think that may have been an influence why he decided to go to Mexico as well. Because if you look at it over the past decade, there's been Mexican players have won league titles in Germany, Spain, England, the Netherlands. That's incredible. I think if you look at it if you've been following Mexican soccer as a whole, that they've probably one of the most underachieving players throughout from a European standpoint, from a soccering country.
Well, I think what I think is interesting about Gignac at Tigres, Ray, is that Tigres made the effort to go outside of Mexico to find a player from Europe and bring him there. And yeah, it cost them a lot of money, but clearly they were making a statement, because what has Mexico traditionally done? They've stayed either within the Mexican confines, or they look south to South America. And there's been a lot of great South American players who have come through Mexico, but they don't traditionally look to Europe for their talent, or for names, or for players who can help them win Copa Libertadores or the Liga MX title. And not saying that this is a game changer that Gignac is at Tigres and that he's doing so well, but if Mexican clubs, with the money advantage they already have over MLS teams, and yeah, MLS designated player rules make it a little bit of a more even playing field, but if Mexican clubs, certainly the big ones, decided they wanted to go and try to entice some European-based players, some Europeans, to come and play in Mexico, that changes the complexion of that league. I think it would be very, very fascinating, and I'm not sure everybody would be on board with it, right? I think a lot of people in Mexico would sort of be against that idea of using European talent in their league when they've been so traditionally reliant on, look, the good Mexican talent that comes through, but also, on Latino players from South America.
Right, I would agree with that. I think that it's hard to argue though Tigres' success. So I mean, if the players, I think a lot of outside of maybe one or two fan bases, maybe want that level of success. But I do agree that. That's why I personally believe Liga MX is the best league in the Americas when you judge talent from the Americas in general.
Yeah, but think about how much. That's the thing. What I'm trying to get to, Ray, is think not only is right now Liga MX is the best league in North America, no question. Probably because of the financial stability of that league, and they have occasional issues, but relative to the rest of Latin America, well above Brazil, well above Argentina. Probably, like you said, maybe the best league in the Americas, period, bar none. And yet they could be bigger. They could be better. They could have more international talent, which would push the level higher, which would mean that maybe we would be talking about a Mexican team going and winning the Club World Cup, for whatever that means, having a real shot at that rather than sort of just being, a patsy for a team like Barcelona when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see sometime. And just how close are they is something that's you only time can tell. And then, but I did hear that Gignac did say that he thought that this Tigres team could compete with quite a few teams in Europe. I mean,
Sure.
I know he's talking to a big Mexican audience, you know. So, but I guess he even said that in France, though, when he was asked by the French media.
Yeah.
But so I don't necessarily know, but it's be interesting to see.
Appreciate the call, Ray. Good stuff, man. I mean, the situation with the Mexican League, where Liga MX, and you know, it's always been the sense, and of course, I'm removed from the situation. I'm not sitting there in the middle of it, and this is why we get Tom Marshall. This is why we get Eric Gomez on this show to give us some explanation. But it always seems as though Mexican soccer gets in its own way, not just from a national team perspective, turning over coaches, having controversial problems within the team, but just in the league sense. If only everybody was sort of moving in the same direction. There's going to be competing elements. All those TV concerns are going to make it a competitive situation. But if we're just moving in the same direction on some level, you imagine that the Mexican League could be massive. Could be. I mean, again, they're removed from Europe. It makes it difficult to compete and be in the same breath as the Premier League or the Bundesliga or La Liga. But with the Mexican financial clout, with some of the things that they have going for them, they could be even bigger and better than they are. Bill in New York, you're on the air.
Jason, what's going on? I want to. I was going to talk about the Cosmos, but I always get off track with your other callers. What is how does Ray feel about the Mexican players coming to MLS? I'm not sure if I've ever heard him talk about that before.
You know, I don't know about Ray individually. We'll have to talk to him. I mean, you know, I think there's there's a split among Mexican American soccer fans, the ones who don't really give MLS much of their time, or maybe do a little bit, but certainly don't think it measures up, or they really hate it when a guy like Dos Santos or and obviously not yet happened, but Vela or Fabian consider it. And then there's some fans who are like, yeah, bring them on. Let's go. This is, you know, the ties between U.S. and Canadian soccer and Mexican soccer are only going to get tighter. There's really no reason to keep those players out. And look, you know, there's certainly a lot of advantages for MLS in terms of trying to attract those players, quality of life, regularity of paycheck, and the less intensive media environment. So you can't stop them. It's going to happen.
I know with us, because with Rafa, it was such a nightmare. But I know that the Mexican fans hated that he came to Red Bull. They thought it was such a sellout, and that he was just doing it for the quick money, and that in the long run he was going to hurt the Mexican team, and that this was like an awful thing. And I was curious if, like, are there more fans going to see Mexican players? You know, I'm almost thinking that they look down on it. They hate that they're coming to MLS. They think they're a sellout for doing it. And I was curious if Ray felt the same way, because I know he's a big Mexico fan.
Yeah,
but
go ahead,
I was
Bill.
also calling about the Cosmos and their new stadium. And I've called you before about this, and I'm like, the Cosmos need to come back to their roots. There's a beautiful stadium in New Jersey, just waiting for them to come and buy it. The money, and I don't care what anybody says, the Cosmos and the MLS, they don't get along. If the money is there, they will move and they'll come over. And I'm still fighting for the Cosmos to come over and buy out Red Bull and play in New Jersey. All
right, so you're advocating for the Cosmos to put together. I mean, consider again. I mean, I've heard some people question those Forbes valuations of MLS teams, especially internally within the league. But we know that stadium costs a good chunk of money. I mean, again, we're talking about $300 million, right? I mean, we're talking about something or 200 at least, $200 million to buy the Red Bulls and Red Bull Arena to get and then slap the Cosmos name on that team and be part of MLS, right? And you said they should do it. I'm not sure they should do it, Bill. And it's not that I don't think the Cosmos name in MLS is a positive for the league and maybe a positive for the team, but they've chosen their path, and I kind of rather see them take that path and push it to its limits. I mean, for all the criticism I throw at NASL in terms of their positioning within American soccer, and really a lot of people will tell you that it's the Cosmos driving a lot of that. I think the Cosmos individually can be good for American soccer by shaking things up. I've never been one to sit here and say the MLS way is the only way. I understand that a lot of people don't have a lot of confidence in the MLS model. I think they should be given credit for where they've gotten to, but that doesn't mean there doesn't need to be a fly in the ointment to make people think moving forward.
But you think they're going to get 25,000 to come to an NASL game? That stadium's going to be half empty.
I don't know, Bill, but I'd like to see them try. I mean, and if they do get that stadium built, maybe there's not that this is what they want, but maybe there's a possibility that, that NYCFC buys up that stadium and the Cosmos. I mean, not the Cosmos are going to go away. Maybe they find a ground share situation with those two teams. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want there to be a white elephant. I'm not wishing that on Belmont, or on Long Island, but I do think it would be fascinating from just a system shakeup situation to imagine the Cosmos getting a 25,000 seat stadium built ahead of NYCFC.
But I know we always talk, and I've heard you talk about in the past, that we want to keep moving. And any time that something fails, it really sets us back. And something like a 25,000 seat stadium for NASL at Long Island, I think would fail. I honestly think it would fail. I think a third stadium in New York area. I mean, the Red Bulls, we don't sell out. We get 16,000 at these games. And that's even, I don't know how they fudge the numbers a little bit. I think it might even be a little less than that. And now to put a third stadium in New York area, it's just not going to work. And God forbid New York City ever got in on the deal and went out to Long Island. That really shoots down everything they've done so far.
No, that's a failure. I've said it before. If NYCFC ends up playing anywhere but Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx, or Brooklyn, it's a failure. And I'm again, I'm not. Staten Island doesn't get included very often anyway, so they're not going to build a stadium on Staten Island. So if they don't find a way to get to put a stadium in one of those four boroughs, it is a failure, and that includes on the edge with Belmont. I mean, I just don't think that's. You're right. That's not a good thing.
All right. Well, I'm moving forward. Come on, Cosmos. Come to New Jersey.
All right.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Bill. And look, there is a legacy there, obviously. Again, the Cosmos playing at the Meadowlands. I don't know. How about this? Now, again, Bill is advocating for the Cosmos to spend a lot of money to buy up the Red Bulls their stadium, their team, and move into MLS. And essentially just change. And again, this is actually funny. Thomas 19064, our friend Mike on Twitter. How convoluted would that history be? Cosmos, NASL legacy, Metro Stars, Red Bulls, Cosmos, NASL, new, MLS Cosmos. And it'll be very difficult to follow. But you have to believe that the MLS owners would say, yeah, sure, come on in. Your money is green. That's all that matters. I'm not so sure that that's the case. Now, if the Red Bulls desperately want out of that team, if Red Bull, the company, desperately wants out of that team, they may not have a choice. But there has to be an approval. There's an approval process for ownership in sports leagues. And I don't know at this point if the Cosmos can get the votes, if they wanted to do it. And I don't think they do. And again, I think that they have pushed all in on this going their own way NASL thing. And I respect the hell out of them for it. Again, I don't know if it's good for American soccer as a whole. I don't know if it's good for the future of MLS or NASL. But I respect the hell out of them for it. 646-832-3909. All right, so this dropped on Twitter. Tweeted by Mike Goodman, who writes, used to write at Grantland. Obviously, Grantland is dead. ESPN FC and many other places. I think I've seen his work at 538. Mike retweeted something from Renee Marich, who is a football writer. Apparently, he translated an interview that Tony Cruz did with Zeit Online Sport. All right, so here you go. Zeit asks, if you had to do without one, game model or motivation, what would you do without? Cruz says, if I had to choose, I would waive motivation. Zeit. Oliver Kahn once said that world-class players don't need motivation. They want to know how the game develops, how to react to it. Tony Cruz says, I'd sign that. A world-class coach has to read a game in a way that him and his team are able to react to changing situations within the game. Zeit. What's with Jurgen Klinsmann? Tony Cruz. In his time at Bayern, I couldn't see anything. Game model, adequate communication, or success. Cruz continues, from the game model, the plan, how to play against the opponent, and how to present the team in these solutions, Pep was the best coach I've ever had. He says, Carlo Ancelotti can mix everything needed for success with the best. The tactical idea, the human component. What's not easy at Real Madrid. When he left, we were all very sad. Even the players not playing who could have had a reason to criticize him for it. No negative words about him. That's remarkable. Zeit says, performance data gets overrated. Cruz says, true. Zeit, Jurgen Klinsmann had a big impact in the development, which led us to the World Cup with Joachim Löw. Cruz, not true. Now, this is just a couple of things. One little bit of what is probably a much larger interview. Again, credit to Rene Maric for translating. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not going to make any comment at all on anything that was included in there. It's Tony Cruz talking about Jurgen Klinsmann. Period. End of story. You take that how you want. Okay? Not going to use that as evidence of anything positive or negative about the national team, the U.S. men's national team head coach. 646-832-3909. We've got, obviously, the MLS offseason. The re-entry draft is today, right? Is that a thing that we should be excited about? The MLS re-entry draft? Who's on the re-entry draft list? I don't know if I know that list yet. Also in MLS news, Ernie Stewart has been introduced as the sporting director of the Philadelphia Union, lauded as, quote, a critical piece of the puzzle, unquote. Imagine that's Jay Sugarman talking about his hiring of Ernie Stewart. Ernie Stewart in MLS is brilliant. I'm super excited about it. I think he's going to make a big difference to the Philadelphia Union, but be patient, Union fans. Just wait a little while before you start getting too worried about results. I think this might take another season before Ernie Stewart's able to put a stamp on his team that actually shows up on the field in the way that they play. And, of course, he's got to work with Jim Curtin. He's got to find a relationship with him. They've got to pick the right players. Right now, I don't know. Ethan White seems to be on his way out. We've got Chris Pontius moving into the team. Some trades happening. Christian Maidana and Andrew Wenger are gone. So there's some roster rebuild stuff, obviously. Happens every season for Philadelphia. And Ernie Stewart will be a major part of that. Also, I mentioned this, the DC United rebrand. How do we feel about this, people? How do we feel about the DC United rebrand? I like it for the most part. Again, I like it. Forget the direction that the ego is looking. I'm not going to draw any, whatever. Not doing that. The one thing I thought when I saw it, though, is it does look like the bird's got he's on trying to go skinny waist diet, something weird's happening there. But I'm a fan of incorporating the DC flag in this logo, in the badge, because it creates a connection with DC. I've seen some complaints, but it seems like an appropriate upgrade in a modern context. There's really nothing offensive about it. Doesn't go weird. There's no and look, there's no ball. I'm all in on the fact that there's no Telstar panel ball that we have to worry about. By the way, MLS needs to update the logo for DC United at the top of the MLSsoccer.com website. Oh, we had a call and then they disappeared. All right. Well, that's a good place to end this episode of Soccer Morning. Friday. Got your big soccer weekend coming up. Enjoy it. Make sure you come back with observations to share with us on Monday. That's your homework over the weekend. Think about soccer, watch some soccer, and then come back and talk to me, with us about the soccer you watched. Find some in-depth analysis to share, or just tell us what you liked and what you didn't like. How about that? We can do that too. All right. Thank you to Jonathan Johnson for his appearance on the program today. Good stuff out of France. And as always, thank you to producer Trevor for his work behind the scenes. We'll be over on Sirius XMFC in about 45 minutes, so join us there. See ya.
Did my invitations disappear?